What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it was a pretty interesting Friday for Microsoft, wouldn't you say? They started the day off by announcing that Xbox Live Gold will be doubling in price, only to then have to massively backtrack later on that night. And they did put out one good piece of news alongside of all of the disaster that happened that day. So we'll go over all of that here. Also, we are going to talk about Knights of the Old Republic as more and more reports are starting to surface online that a new game in the series is actually underway by a studio we wouldn't expect. Oh, and we are going to talk about Vicarious Visions because unfortunately it looks like they're being absorbed into Blizzard, but there does also appear to be a silver lining there for Diablo fans. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Platinum Games. Do you remember that website that Platinum had announced and showed off? And it was going to basically reveal all of the different projects they were doing, not necessarily just games, but just things that they were trying to accomplish now that they're becoming more and more independent, securing investment from different companies and publishers. Well, it looks like they updated that Platinum 4 website, and here's what it looks like now. There appears to be a 5th star. Now, a Platinum 4, you would expect there to just be, nope, they said, we're just throwing another star in there. There you go. I mean, this is where we had the Wonderful 101 remastered that was announced here. Talk about a movie, Platinum Games Tokyo, the Project GG. And now we have one that's just a bunch of question marks. We have 2 XXs right there, and then 2021. So it appears they are readying some other announcement, and there's been some speculation. Oh, maybe that's Bayonetta 3. I don't think so. Bayonetta 3 is going to be handled by Nintendo. They'll deal with all of that, just like Astral Chain. Like Nintendo took care of all of that, and they were like, Platinum, you're going to make it. We'll worry about the marketing and all of this and publishing it naturally. So I think this is going to be something just for them. And really looking at this site, it could be anything. I mean, we see a movie, well, we see a studio. Seriously, it could be anything that Kamiya is coming up with in the background. He's already said that they have several projects upcoming for this year, so we'll just have to keep an eye on this website because I'm sure they'll be announcing it probably in the next month or two so they can have it ready to go for this year as maybe a game, or who knows? I mean, honestly, it could be another studio or maybe a new IP or something. We'll see. Also, we did have Games with Gold announced for February alongside of the Xbox Live Gold price announcement. It kind of went under the radar a bit because of all the commotion around the pricing that was being changed, but let's go over here. They put this little card out kind of showing all the different titles. And you know what? It's actually not a bad month for Games with Gold. We've talked about how poor that's been for the past couple of months. This one looks pretty solid. We can see here we have Gears 5. That's going to be available February 1st to the 28th. Resident Evil, that's the 1st to the 28th as well throughout February. We have Dandara. That's going to be available February 16th to February 15th. Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, that's the first half of February, so the 1st to the 15th. And then Lost Planet 2, that's the 16th to the 28th of February. Interesting that Indiana Jones is in there. I almost wonder if they knew what was happening. Obviously that they did, but like to say, oh, let's try to line this up for when that announcement was going to be put out there alongside of Lucasfilms and all of this. Hey, let's put out an older Indiana Jones game that they can play right now on their Xbox Series X and S. Lost Planet 2 is pretty good. Gears 5, I mean, if you have Game Pass, you've probably already played that one, but otherwise that's at least there. And hey, Resident Evil is good. Also, I've not played Dandara myself, but you know what? Looking at what we've had before, like recently, this is really, really good for them. So I guess with all that Xbox Live Gold news that came out on Friday, this was at least part of the good bit of news. Oh, and do you remember how we were getting all of these Cyberpunk patches that were going to be coming out? They were going to be laying the groundwork to fix the game in the first couple of months of this year. Well, a patch came out. It was 1.11, and it actually introduced a new game-breaking bug. I figured we would cover it here just in case you run into this yourself, because I'm also going to link you to a page down in the sources to one way I guess you can fix it, which includes even skipping ahead in time through rest and a whole thing once again with CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk. But here we go. Let's go over to Forbes where they say when Takamura calls you for the down on the street mission, you'll get stuck there and he won't say anything, with the mission not being able to continue. Reportedly, reloading saves does not fix this either. And even if you reload an older save, if you get back to this point, it will still happen. This effectively halts all progress in the game. Yes, that's part of the main quest line, so you're kind of stuck. I guess you can walk around and do some other things like side missions or just random encounters, but for the most part, you're not going to be going any further in the main storyline. Down further in that page, they have at least some steps that CD Projekt put out to at least try to walk you through some things they can do, and I assume coming up here pretty soon we'll have a hot fix for this one, but it's not a great look, and it doesn't introduce a lot of confidence with their new plan that they're actually creating more game-breaking bugs with the patches that are supposed to fix the old game-breaking bugs. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're starting right away with Microsoft's Interesting Friday. Like I said, interesting 16 hours or so. Early in the morning at 6 a.m., they posted up an entire blog post on their website detailing some changes to pricing. However, the day before, something odd happened online. One of those cards actually got out. In fact, there was an image on Reddit that was posted. You can see here, this was posted up by Jeff, and you can clearly see $59.99 Xbox Live Gold for 6 months. So there were some questions about if this was something that Microsoft had just kind of thrown out there randomly. They're like, oh, we're just gonna go ahead and up the price and it'll be this big PR move. No, there was a lot of planning that went into this. I talked about this on the second channel. Last year, they took away the 12-month option so that they could build to this point where they don't have to write $120 out. They just keep writing 60. You just gotta do the math and realize, oh wait, there's 12 months in the year, so I need 2 of those 6-month cards that are $60. Yeah, this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. They've been planning this for a while. Anyway, they went on to post this massive blog post, kind of getting you ready for the inevitable price increase that they were going to tell you about. They have crossed it out since then, but it's at a price of a 1-month gold membership is increasing to $1, price of a 3-month membership increasing to $5, or the equivalent amount in your local market. So basically, we're gonna go up to 11 to 30, and then eventually, if you have the full 6 months there that they are showing off with that card, $60, effectively making the Xbox Live Gold $120 a year. And this went over as well as you would expect online. It was mayhem. No one was happy with this that I saw online, really. I mean, we're already questioning the idea of having to pay any of these console manufacturers money to play online, considering it's all peer-to-peer and all of this anyway. And if you look on the PC side, there's no payment there to play online, so we're already kind of looking sideways at that $60 payment to Microsoft, that $60 payment to Sony, the $20 payment to Nintendo. Sure, games with gold, PlayStation Plus, and that Nintendo online service with the Nintendo and Super Nintendo games are thrown on as like little benefits, but a lot of it does revolve around you needing it to then play your games online. But then something a bit surprising happened. Someone had to go in, I guess, to the office because they pushed this out on a Friday, something you do kind of on the way out the door and you're thinking, okay, it'll blow over by the end of the weekend, we'll come in Monday and everyone will have forgotten about it, moved on to the next thing that EA or CD Projekt or Ubisoft did right over the weekend that annoyed everyone. No, this was such a big deal that someone did have to go into the office or sit at home and type this up because they released this late at night on Friday. I think it was either midnight or 1 a.m. my time, so even heading into Saturday, this is what they posted up over on their site. We messed up today and you were right to let us know. Connecting and playing with friends is a vital part of gaming and we failed to meet the expectations of players who count on it every day. As a result, we have decided not to change Xbox Live Gold pricing. We're turning this moment into an opportunity to bring Xbox Live more in line with how we see the player at the center of their experience. For free-to-play games, you will no longer need an Xbox Live Gold membership to play those games on Xbox. We are working hard to deliver this change as soon as possible in the coming month. And they go on a bit further to detail the original pricing that most of us had become accustomed to, $60 for the year. And the other part with the free-to-play games being locked behind Xbox Live Gold was absolutely something that was brought up right next to this price increase. Because then you think about it, it costs $120 a year to play Fortnite on at your Xbox for Xbox Live Gold. And it makes no sense considering Nintendo or Sony, neither of them have that. You don't need PlayStation Plus and you don't need Nintendo Switch Online to play free-to-play games, whether it's Apex Legends or Fortnite. Now, according to Daniel Ahmed online, this was something that was being planned anyway for Microsoft. They just decided, hey, let's move it up, the announcement up, and tell everyone about that here so we can kind of ease the blow and at least give some good news alongside of this, because this was a bad misstep by Microsoft. Everyone knew what they were trying to do. If we raise the price of Xbox Live Gold, people will be more inclined to pay a little more and just go with Game Pass Ultimate and get that massive library of games that, I mean, they're pretty good. Most of us look at Game Pass as a good value, but we don't really look at Xbox Live Gold right now at $6 a year as a good value. $120 a year gets even worse. They had really the worst value in gaming with Xbox Live Gold at $120 there for about 12 hours, the way they were talking about it. And then they had the best value in gaming with Xbox or Game Pass Ultimate at $15 a month. So I think it is a good move by Microsoft to quickly reverse this, not even wait a day. They just got on it immediately. But I have some questions as to how this happened in the first place, because like you'd think Phil Spencer would have looked at this and said, that's not a good idea. But I mean, he's head of Xbox. So if you take credit for the good things, you got to take credit for the bad things as well, just like this one. So I really am unsure as to how internally at Microsoft, everyone looked around at the Xbox Live Gold team, as that's apparently who wrote it out. No one put their name on this blog post, go figure. But somehow they all came to the table and they said, this is a good idea. We're going to double the price of a service that people are having a hard time seeing value in as it is. So let's see what happens. And well, hey, I will say this, gamers push back, and there you go. It does still pay to actually do that online. So don't be concerned about putting the actual criticism out there as long as it's warranted. This certainly was. And here we are now with Microsoft having to backpedal with their Xbox Live Gold cost back down to $60 per year, but they've shown us what they really want to do, and we'll see how they get us to Game Pass Ultimate in the future, because that is their ultimate goal, and it's not going to be from doubling Xbox Live Gold, so I guess remain vigilant as to any of the tricks or things that could happen here to try to push you forward. Really, what Microsoft should do is just get rid of Xbox Live Gold, games with gold, any of that, have that become free, put some pressure on Sony and Nintendo as it is, and really go along with Game Pass Ultimate from there. Put good games on that service, and people will show up. Next up, let's talk about Knights of the Old Republic. The first two, obviously classics, but what about a third one? Could we get a third game in the Knights of the Old Republic series? Well, rumors have been swirling for what feel like years now, but it would always come back to EA. Would EA really make a third Knights of the Old Republic game? Can BioWare do it all over again? Because we had BioWare and then we had Obsidian. Well, now Obsidian is with Microsoft. Well, it looks like a new report is going around currently about rumors for a third Knights of the Republic game coming back and not being by EA, because now, remember, that possibility is just out there since we're starting to see other companies show up to Disney and work with the Star Wars license. This coming to us from VGC, reported also by IGN, saying the Star Wars insider Bespin Bulletin, who spoke on a recent Bob the Podcast episode around this project that is said to be in development outside of EA and that will never guess who the studio is that's making this game, saying, amongst my digging, I heard there is a Knights of the Old Republic project in development somewhere. I talked to a couple of people, and I also found out that Jason Schreier said that it's not with EA and will never guess who the studio is that's making this game. Now, that comment came on a post for Reset Era from Jason Schreier, and yeah, it seems like more and more of these rumors are popping up around Knights of the Old Republic, and it's kind of coming on the tail end recently after we've seen EA kind of fade away from having that exclusive right for Star Wars. I believe they still do now, and a lot of the stuff we're hearing is just plans for the future. Like, this Knights of the Republic probably won't be out for years. I mean, I guess they could announce it at any time if they want, but now the question is, because we know, all right, I guess it's not EA then. Like, if it's a studio wouldn't expect, we would expect BioWare to do it, or we'd expect Obsidian, that being with Microsoft. So throw those two out, I guess, based on the reports and the rumors here. Who else do we have? Honestly, anyone. That's the biggest thing. I mean, you could go really like kind of off the grid here, and you could say maybe inXile from Microsoft, maybe Microsoft, because we've already seen Bethesda grab the Indiana Jones license to make a game with Machine Games. Like, who saw that one coming? The studio that was developing like Wolfenstein is now going to take a shot at Indiana Jones. That's kind of the thing we're seeing right now. We didn't expect that one, right? They could have said that about Indiana Jones, and we would not have guessed Machine Games. So yeah, it could really be anyone right now with Knights of the Old Republic. I'm just excited to hear that rumor is really coming back now with some legitimacy behind it, seeing Jason Schreier talk about it, and others. So exciting stuff here. We'll just have to kind of keep our eyes out for Knights of the Old Republic. I'm really hoping that it gets shown later this year. Like, hey, the Game Awards is a good spot, but honestly, if it's just now really being talked about getting back into production by a studio we wouldn't expect, it could be a couple of years, but exciting stuff to keep our eyes on. Next up, let's talk about that Resident Evil 4 remake that was basically confirmed because of those Capcom leaks that got out there with the ransomware. Resident Evil 4 remake was in there, so while it was originally rumored, we've actually had documents come out telling us about it. But now we have a new report around the direction for the game. It even basically being rebooted in development now with schedules shifting here. And let's go over here to Video Games Chronicles because they did have the story on this one saying, however, multiple sources have indicated that following a key project review late last year, it was decided that M2's role on RE4's remake would be significantly reduced. Capcom's Division 1, the internal team responsible for Resident Evil and Devil May Cry games, has now been brought in to lead the RE4 project. VGC understands it's believed that the disagreements that led to M2's reduced role involved the studio's desire to stick faithfully to the template of the original Resident Evil 4, partly influenced by backlash to Resident Evil 3's remake, which did not include significant portions of the original PlayStation game, much to fans' disappointment. Capcom's production team, however, is said to prefer a direction which would see RE4's remake inspired by the original, but with its own unique take on features, story elements, and environments not necessarily confined to the blueprint of the original, similar to Resident Evil 2's use of Mr. X. And really the whole situation here with this report kind of comes back to one of the concerns I had when we first heard about RE4 getting remade, because a lot of people wondered, is it needed? Do we need a remake of RE4? And really, honestly, looking at the RE engine right now and how impressive it is, yes, I would like to see RE4 remade in that engine on the PS5, on the Series X, on a really strong PC. That would be awesome to actually see that in person, yes. But can they change much of the game? Because that seems to be the internal struggle here, and it was the internal struggle of fans, I think, when they first announced it, because it's exciting. But then will they change it and actually make the game worse? That's something they dealt with RE3, where they took chunks of the game out and people liked RE2 more. And as they say, with Mr. X kind of being altered and moved around a bit there for that, I think you do have to modernize RE4 a bit. I don't think you can just put it out the exact same way, reskin it, have better looking visuals, but be the exact same game. I don't think it's going to necessarily work in let's say 2024. If they've internally rebooted this thing, end of 2023, beginning of 2024, I think things will have to change somewhat in the game. And really it's a tug of war of how much do they change it. So yeah, it was interesting seeing this report after all of the controversy and questions around it originally when it was first being rumored. But let me know what you guys think about this. Specifically, how much would you want them to change of RE4? And would you prefer that they just keep just absolutely stick to the exact events, everything down to a T for RE4, how you remember it on the GameCube? In our last bit of news, let's talk about Vicarious Visions and Activision Blizzard, because unfortunately, it looks like Vicarious is actually being absorbed into Blizzard. Yeah, that when I first saw this, I was like, oh, they did such a good job with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, and I was really hoping they would do Tony Hawk Underground, that being their next big remake in the Tony Hawk series, and it was be a whole thing with them because that was a quality game. Well, it turns out they're going to have their hands full with something a bit different. And you know what? I guess the shift for them, technically, with what they'll be given, is going to be a big deal for overall, for fans of Diablo and them. So let's go over here to gamesindustry.biz, where they did have the story on this one, saying, going forward, the Vicarious Visions team of about 200 people will be employees of Blizzard and fully dedicated to existing Blizzard games and initiatives, which means the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 studio will no longer be creating games as the lead developer. That part was kind of unfortunate there. But after collaborating with Vicarious Visions for some time and developing a great relationship, Blizzard realized there was an opportunity for Vicarious Visions to provide long-term support. Now, of course, Activision Blizzard would not comment on what they were going to be doing exactly. Well, what would 200 people from Vicarious Visions, who obviously have quite a bit of talent, what would they be working on to help with Blizzard? Well, if we go over to Jason Schreier, he said, VV has been working on a Diablo 2 remake. This after Team 1, Blizzard's classic team, was quietly dismantled last fall. Now, Diablo 2 remake is going to be a big deal for Diablo fans. It really will be. That's such a popular game in the series for fans. So bringing in a talented studio like Vicarious Visions, moving them over, yes, they are being technically absorbed into Blizzard, and it'll be interesting to see what happens after Diablo 2 Remake comes out. What will those people do then? Will they just continue to run support in Blizzard? The unfortunate part for me is Vicarious Vision's been around for over 30 years, I believe. I think their first actual game that they really got their feet wet with and developed was in '96. But they've been around for a long time, even before that. But like looking at this, it's unfortunate that they had to go there because I feel like they were just getting started with something like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, and that could continue on to maybe their own like new Tony Hawk game. But hey, you know what? I get it. Diablo 2 remake needs to get done. The fact that they had to dismantle a team that was originally working on it, and you look around and you say, well, who do we have that is talented enough to take a game and remake it and make it good? Well, that's Vicarious Visions, so there we go. I guess you could look at it going up to Diablo 2 Remake that is held at such a high standard as an upgrade. It's just unfortunate they are being really absorbed into Blizzard after the legacy they've had. Then we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Holem saying, if they redesign the Joy-Con, they are essentially admitting that the defect exists and therefore they will immediately lose these lawsuits. It's not going to happen, not defending, just explaining. So I thought about this too, and that is something that's been brought up before. Hey, if you redesign it and you put it out there and you announce it and all this, then yeah, they're going to look at that and say, well, obviously there was a problem. You guys changed it. But I mean, there's going to be a new Joy-Con eventually. I mean, like, you look at Microsoft, they've had like their Xbox Elite controller. They have altered the Xbox One controller somewhat mid-generation for the Xbox One because we went from like just their like regular their wireless connection to Bluetooth, and they also added like a headphone jack. So things have happened on the other side with Microsoft, who's going through their own stick drift lawsuit right now as well. So I feel like Nintendo could market it as it just being like the next generation Joy-Con controller that just happens to fit into this generation, and then they just quietly discontinue the old ones and these are just the same price. I don't know. I'm wondering if that would actually affect the lawsuit if it is marketed and branded correctly, but something interesting to think about there. I do think that's a good point. I'm just not really sure how that would work into the lawsuit if Nintendo comes about it as the next Joy-Cons. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it is the Xbox Live situation on Friday. What do you think about all of it? The initial price hike, the backpedal, the reaction online, free-to-play games now actually being free on the Xbox. Also, what do you think about Knights of the Old Republic, and which studio do you think would be making that third one that would surprise us? Give me your best guess down below. And then Vicarious Visions getting absorbed into Blizzard, but to work on Diablo 2 Remake. Does that give you a bit more confidence as a Diablo fan? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.